What's going on, guys? This is Remy with Level 1 News, and I just got a look at the Microsoft E3 press conference that just happened, and from what I can tell you, I'm a bit disappointed. I'll get into it all right now. The big one was the big Scorpio reveal. What they ended up doing was pretty much telling you the name, because that was very much important, and then what the system looks like. So they went with Xbox One X. What we have is an Xbox One S and an Xbox One X. Not a bad name. It keeps in line with the X being sort of the big thing for Microsoft of the Xbox. It does make it a bit confusing as it being a step up from like an Xbox One and Xbox One S. But you know, it's not like it's anything really bad. It's just, you know, on a consumer level, it might be a bit confusing. I mean, but for those that really know, it wouldn't be a problem. It's not that big of a deal, and it's not like a hugely impressive name. It's not a terrible name either. It's just one of those things. So it's called Xbox One X, and they went and they showed off a bunch of games. Now the press conference lasted a little bit over 90 minutes, more than the traditional amount for like E3 press conference. And what they ended up doing was talking straight up about how many games they were going to show and how many games were exclusive. So they said, I think 40 something games were shown and 22 of those were exclusive. Now that sounds like a very exciting thing. You're like, oh my god, there's 22 exclusive games, and that's very hard to come by. But I'm gonna get into that in a moment of how, you know, it really didn't mean as much as you thought. So they opened up the show with Forza Motorsport 7. Not a surprise to no one. They were gonna open up with Forza, or they were gonna have Forza 7 there, and they showed off the game. And you know, like the detail level, you know, now their new relationship with Porsche, and like you know, like their latest car and what the cover art looks like. Now, watching the press conference at home versus being there, you know, you didn't really get the fidelity of it being like 4K, HDR advanced, or anything else. And to be honest, it looked the same as like Forza 6 and even maybe Forza 5 in their press conferences before that. So it wasn't a big difference. I know that when you play at 4K, 60 frames, HDR, it's going to matter. But for those watching it, it didn't look like it was that and much more enhanced graphically that would, you know, compel you to get an Xbox One X. Next up was they revealed that there's going to be another Metro game. So Metro Exodus is the latest in the franchise of the Metro series. So, you know, they showed what was in-game footage. Looked very, very good. Pretty much impossible to play a first-person shooter game like that, and it reminds me of the Killzone trailer, which any game that kind of looks like that or plays like that, not a real demo. You're never going to really play the game like that. So I don't know if that's the way the game looks for real, or if that's just what they propped it up for the demo, but I'll go on a whim and say that it's not going to be that game like that, and it'll be very much a straightforward first-person shooter versus not. But again, the game looked very good. This is one of the things, you know, I'll take in a personal level of where it gets a little weird with, you know, these kind of press conferences. So they did a world premiere for it, and it's not exclusive. So, I mean, that may be the only game, though, that is worth viewing, being that they wouldn't have any other way to show off that game in sort of a press con form. So, not bad, looked good, and it's going to look better with 4K and HDR with Xbox One X when it releases next year. Another one was they revealed the latest Assassin's Creed. Now, this one was disappointing to me on multiple levels. One being that this took up a good chunk of time for something that can be put out, that can actually be shown at the Ubisoft press conference. It didn't need to be on a first-party press conference for such a third-party game. For that was going to be such a long time. One. Two, you know, they talked about different things. It was supposed to be running on 4K and HDR, and it's like the new story. But on a level of just being graphically and everything, the game didn't look that great to me. You know, maybe everybody has a different perception, but from what I saw, it looked like it didn't really progress in sort of any form graphically. Whether it was, you know, actual character animation, character design, and level design. I mean, the biggest thing I saw was probably color and draw distance as being a very relevant thing, graphically that was being taken advantage of. The rest, is at a design level, didn't look that great. Now, as far as the game itself, the game looks pretty good. This looks like the start of the Assassins sort of timeline of things. So in the Egyptian kind of landscape, this is where the Brotherhood of Assassins starts. And it looks like it goes beyond now just killing or assassinating people, and you get into a little realm of, of giant monsters and stuff, as we saw Snake at the very end, which I'm excited about. I'd be down for a little bit more of a mythical sense than all reality as we've been getting. So another big reveal, and these of course are not in no real chronological order. Another big reveal was, they talked about and they showed State of Decay 2. Just, a lot of the gameplay, what was going on, how the people will interact with each other, what you're going to be doing. The game looks good. The first one, it actually was like a game that kind of blew up out of nowhere for Xbox. And so I guess Microsoft put some weight behind it, which you can tell. And they came out with a game that probably was going to be a little bit lower than a AAA title, and now Microsoft's trying to probably build it up to like a AAA title. I don't know if it has that much of enough of star power for that. The game does look good though, so we'll have to wait and see. It comes out next year, a little bit longer than I would have thought for a game that was announced a little bit ago, but it's not terrible. So another one was, of course, Microsoft doesn't get away without showing a bit of Minecraft. So two major announcements. I was thinking, what could they talk about Minecraft that hasn't already been said? And one was a pretty big deal if it is done correctly. So one was the fact that they made the system that'll let you crossplay between pretty much everything, all consoles and all platforms. So, and they showed a little picture of like the Switch in like a Minecraft form inside the game. So that pretty much leads us all to believe that you can play with people on Switch while you're on Xbox, and you could possibly play with people on PlayStation while you're on Xbox, computer, vice versa, etc. Huge step, huge move. This is obviously can be a first step to what could be a precursor to other things. But regardless, as a Minecraft standpoint, if you're a fan, if you wanted to play with people that don't have your console, this is the best way to do it. So if that wasn't enough, they actually talked about that it is going to get its own 4K upgrade. And its 4K upgrade is probably one of the better ones that we've seen throughout the whole press conference, where they're pretty much making new texture packs, lighting system, draw distance. The game looks really good in 4K and HDR. It actually looks similar to what people have done on like a mod level for Minecraft in the PC. So very good. Didn't think that would happen, and it was there. So maybe something's looking forward to come back to. So Cyberpunk, lot has been talked about what their next game is, and they finally revealed it, and it is The Last Night. So The Last Night seems like the best 8-bit game I've ever seen. Set in a futuristic setting, almost Blade Runner-ish. You're a guy, with, I don't know what the actual real premise is, but things look very mystery-like, running, on the go and on the chase, and, like a lot of like futuristic elements. Gorgeous looking, like graphics and other things going on. So the game looked very, very good. Not 100% when they said the game was going to come out, but it's not soon enough, pretty much. So another one was, they talked about like the relationship with Japanese partners, and I'm thinking they're really going to get into something that they hadn't gotten into before, and they talked about the new Dragon Ball Z game. So Dragon Ball Z Fighter Z. Didn't know the name until the very end, because obviously, that would have been a little bit more telling. But crazy enough, I am fully on board with this game. I have been waiting for a Dragon Ball Z fighting game, like old school fighting, for a long time. None of the Xenoverse stuff, like a fighting game, and this looks like it gets to the root of the game. Now, we heard about this game before, but see the reveal, and it looks very good on the Microsoft stage was not too bad, it being Bandai Namco and stuff. Of course, some of their exclusives that they announced, and you knew that they were going to be there. One was Crackdown 3. Crackdown 3, they finally talked about. You know, it had a little thing in the beginning with Terry Crews. Terry Crews is, of course, hilarious. So, you know, he went about talking about how you're the, you know, actual agent. And then they showed a bit of the game, and the game looks good. Now, I will say this, and I kind of knew this was going to happen. It didn't show any true element of full destruction in the game. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that they reversed what they were trying to do with the full-on destruction, and the game is probably either partial destruction or like maybe just even cars and stuff like that, and blemishes to other surfaces and like buildings. A lot of that stuff that they had to do with was talking about the cloud stuff. Obviously, that has to do a lot of with online component and everything else. I don't think that that's going to be true to nature. Now, you thought with maybe the Scorpio, they'd be able to, or sorry, not the Scorpio, Xbox One X. It's going to take me a while to get used to that. They would kind of go in the route of like, you know, making it as the fidelity as possible for what they were trying to accomplish. But the whole trailer to the very end, they didn't show 1 ounce of full destruction. So that makes me believe that they got away from that, you know, being that this game is years in development, and it didn't look like it was any clearer to being released until right now. And then this is sort of what we got, you know, a game that is gonna be good, and it's gonna, you know, have story, whatever the case may be. But what they were saying as like a next gen feature, full destruction, probably not going to be there. So another one that was very exciting to hear was Sea of Thieves. Now this looks like a very rare game, and rare meaning the company, but rare meaning not that much out there. So Sea of Thieves, they showed a huge gameplay trailer with a narrator, which was actually pretty good. They talked about everything you could do. Very co-op, team-based action, which looked awesome. If you could get the team going and stuff like that for it, or you know, friends or strangers, this is gonna be a really awesome game. I don't know how the element of the game works by itself or with people you don't know, but the game looked great for what they showed. You know, the game is actually some time away, spring of next year, until the game comes out. I knew the game wasn't going to come out this year, so that's not a surprise. Surprising would have been if it actually talked about it was going to come out this year, but obviously it's not. So we have to wait a little longer, but pretty good. So, you know, I thought this was going to be bigger of a deal than it was. Square Enix looked like they were going to be, you know, sort of up there. It talked about like a world premiere, and then they talked about Life is Strange, you know, season 2 or 2, whatever. This is their episodic game. It actually did pretty well. But it's not some of their bigger games that they're bringing to other consoles that are exclusive to that, or that they're just simply not coming out with on Xbox, which is kind of sad considering that, you know, it took a long time to build up a relationship with Square Enix in the first place, and it really only started happening after the Xbox 360. You thought it'd get stronger. It doesn't look like it has. It's you know, if it's not a major title, they not really pulling the weight for the Xbox. And I feel like that has partially to do with Microsoft not doing what they need to do to kind of secure all that stuff. Because they are an American company versus Sony and Nintendo being a Japanese company. So finally we got a reveal for Cuphead. Cuphead is coming out this year finally, and the end of September. I mean, if you told me to wait on Cuphead any longer, I would have been ashes and bones right now. Like, I did not think this game was going to be coming out anytime soon, let alone that I forget that it was an actual exclusive. So the game's finally coming out. It's an exclusive. I can't wait for that. Yeah, they didn't show too much. Doesn't need to. They've been showing it for the past couple of years, so we'll just have to wait and see what it's like. A big secure for Microsoft was PlayerUnknowns Battlegrounds. Now, this game has been blowing up on the computer. You know, it's one of those just like online team shooters kind of games, but it's like such a bigger aspect of what's going on in the game. It's complete chaos. This is a big one just because it's a PC only game at the time, and this looks like they worked with them to really get an exclusive console launch on it, or maybe just a timed exclusive. I'm not sure what's really the true work, since they said like launch first on console, like on Xbox. That could mean anything, but the game is chaotic, looks good. A lot of people are interested. More people are interested. And, you know, if you couldn't run the system now, you get yourself an Xbox One, or if you have one, and now you could play it this fall. So they talked about late 2017 for release. So we'll see when that comes out. So one that I actually really liked as an announcement was the sequel to Ori. This is called Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Beautiful looking game. I'm talking about like top to bottom. Probably one of the better looking games I've seen all E3. This, you know, the first game was very gorgeous. Beat that game, and you know, it had a really nice, touching story. This looks like it's gonna be more of that, but just like so much more of the world than I would have ever imagined. So I actually really can't wait for that. Not too sure when that's coming out, but I guess we'll see when they're looking to release it. I actually can't wait for that. One of the last things that they mentioned was something about, like, you know, they talked about, you know, not knowing how big that backwards compatibility was for Xbox 360 being on Xbox One. They pretty much now look like they're getting into the original library of Xbox. So in the coming months, you're gonna start seeing, you know, some of the more popular titles from Xbox coming into Xbox One as backwards compatible. Now, a lot of people don't own those discs, so I don't know how that's truly going to work. I mean, I would imagine that they're going to sell those games online, and hopefully they're not too expensive. But you'll see everything from hopefully Crimson Skies, you know, personal favorites like Mech Assault, Midtown Madness. Midtown Madness 3 was probably one of my favorite Xbox titles. And, you know, hopefully a few others. So down to the very end of things, and they finally revealed, which they talked about in EA's press conference but never showed it, which was Anthem. Anthem is the new BioWare game, and let me tell you, that's probably the best game I've seen all E3 so far. Beautiful looking game. The world looks huge. You know, you get into Titan-esque kind of suits, but they're more human-like. But I mean, I feel like there are probably different suits for, you know, different loadouts and stuff like that. RPG elements, big world, monsters, dialogue to support. It's very much a BioWare game with everything going on that looks great about it. But at the very end of things, when I saw them sort of fighting and everything else, it looks like people could drop in and play with you. So it does look like there's a co-op aspect on that game too. Hands down, best looking game. It was a world premiere for that. There wasn't any talk of any exclusivity, which kind of sucks, considering that, you know, that took a chunk of 20 minutes or so. Like even EA's Shadow of Mordor, which didn't need that time at all. I don't need a third-party game which had its own press conference to be talked about that long, but they showed that game off, I guess. But Anthem was something to see. You know, it looks like it's taking full advantage of 4K and HDR, and it's a game that's coming out next year, so we'll have to hear more about it, but looks phenomenal. I would say my huge takeaway with the Xbox and Microsoft press conference, I was disappointed, yes. Why? Because there are two issues that Microsoft is failing to do, and is failing to do every single time. And this I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant, because this is back in the Peter Moore days of running the company, where he made sure that games appeared on the system that needed to be on the system, so that obviously you would get the people that wanted those games to get the system for that reason. You know, on the most popular console there was, whatever. So basically, the third-party support is not there for games that don't originally appear on Xbox to begin with. Now that's a big deal. There are tons of Bandai Namco games. There are Square Enix games. There are games from different companies. They don't appear on Xbox for one reason or another. Easier to develop on PlayStation, bigger fan base, limited number of actual money to develop, and so they have to pick and choose the actual consoles they want to develop it for, and that's where Microsoft is failing at making those partnerships with those companies to obviously get those games out there on the Xbox, which they need. They need it to get more people that don't have an Xbox to get one. It's It's the logic. There are a couple of games. There are a couple Square Enix games that were announced that they're not coming for Xbox. They're just not, and it doesn't look like that's going to change at all because there's no extended relationship that they made. You know, that they could have made bigger now. So that's what really sucks. The third-party support is just not there. The games or properties that have not appeared on Xbox. And then their first party. This whole E3, this whole press conference, not one first-party exclusive new IP. Not one. That was hugely disappointing. Like, I don't know how you could do a whole show talking about, like, there's 22 exclusive games, but none of them is your, like, a first-party AAA title. That makes no sense. Now, you go ahead and say, like, oh, they have Gamescom, they have other things to talk about, like, newer games that's going to come out for Xbox, but I don't know if this is sort of like the end of the line and maybe they're going to scramble after this, but they just don't have it. A new Sunset Overdrive would have been huge. Just a new IP from, like, a different company, one of their extended companies to make something bigger. Nothing. We got nothing. We got Forza 7. We got Crackdown 3. We got Sea of Thieves. I feel like that's pretty much it on the first party side. We knew they weren't going to talk about Halo this time around, but nothing else. Now, setting aside that, the claim for getting a Xbox One X. Now, the big thing, price. They announced the price, $499. Surprise to no one, at least not me. I knew it wasn't going to be under that. $450 would have been a real sweet price. But that would have been pretty huge to like not have it as high. And then anything over 500 was going to shoot them in the foot. So 500 is a sweet spot. It's what most of the companies started off with, like a couple of years ago when they launched these consoles. So it's not surprising. This is like a premium tier console. PlayStation Pro 4 as it stands is $400, so I guess it's a little bit more expensive, but you get a little bit more power. The library is smaller in general, so I don't really know how they're going to drive people to want to get this console over another. Not with like the 3 IPs, AAA IPs that are coming out this year. It's just not enough. And then they talked about like things running smoother. Old games and then games like like third-party games are obviously being worked on to run 4K and like have native support. And then out of the lineup of like 4K support and enhancements that's gonna happen when the system comes out, they talked about their backwards lineup, which was Gears of War 4, Forza Horizon 3, Halo Wars 2. And Killer Instinct and a few others. But surprisingly, no Halo 5. Now that may change, but Halo 5 not being a part of that lineup of like 4K stuff, 4K enhancements in HDR, that's a little bit weird. So games look great while they showed them off. It's not like they didn't. They showed a lot of new games. I knew that they were gonna weigh in on the indie platform to sort of show off 4K and HDR and exclusive games for the system, because they pretty much didn't have it anywhere else, which is kind of sad. Wish Anthem was some sort of exclusive, whether it's content or whatever. Still may happen in the future. Nothing's set in stone since that game is still coming out next year. We have no idea when. But make a long story short, they didn't show anything off that way. So I'm going off of a new console, 3 AAA IPs, and I'm supposed to pay $500? That's a hard sell. Very, very hard sell. I'm a big Xbox fan. I might be there day one. But for everyone else, very hard sell to do that. Now, if you want the best looking game, that you could get on a console, it might be that one, if it appears on it, obviously. But, it wasn't terrible press conference. They showed a lot. There was a lot to see. It just didn't live up to expectations of what things could have been for an Xbox Scorpio. They pretty much went on the fact that they are launching a new console, and they didn't have too much to show for the new console, except that we are enhancing everything that comes along from this day forward, which makes sense, but it's not the best approach. No talk of VR, no talk of any support for like existing VR. It's gonna happen. It'll happen next year, I'm sure, but now we're Now we're gonna go a year, just sort of getting enhanced games, 4K, and then talking about VR next year when VR is sort of getting hot this year, especially since PlayStation VR is out already. So hope you guys like this video. Like the video. If you do, comment. Definitely give a debate on what you thought. Subscribe to the page as we give you more E3 coverage all week, and we're gonna even do some giveaways. So stay tuned to that. So this is Remy with Level 1 News signing out.